Flanagan, actress Kate Bosworth, producer Fantasia. Mike, do you want to start maybe by telling the audience a bit about your process, how you're able to write these explorations of the mourning process of grief through the parameters of genre?
Sure. I mean, one of the things I really believe about genre film in general is that it's an opportunity for us to really kind of explore the darker or sometimes just the more painful sides of our nature. And this movie, it's really kind of important to talk about when it was written, because this movie was originally called Somnia, and it was kind of the third entry in what was like an unofficial Latin titled trilogy that was Absentia, Oculus, and then this. And so they are kind of meant to go together, and just kind of through the accidents of how releases work, they're not ever really going to be perceived that way by a general audience. But so this to me was kind of the third volley. The scripts for the three of those movies were written within several months of each other. And this was always just kind of the third, kind of trip down that road for me, so.
In terms of casting, when did Kate get into the picture for this?
I think we had our first conversation probably in the late summer of 2013.
I think so. Remember?
Yeah. This is a little while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we just jumped on the. Did we Skype or
we Skyped? Yeah.
I just feel like we just kind of felt the same way about the material, kind of how we wanted it to be brought to life.
You can tell very quickly talking to an actor if they're excited about the movie for the same reason that you are. And so it didn't take us very long, I think, in our first conversation to identify that. And then when Kate came to Alabama for prep, and we were really kind of digging into, I can't believe it. It's like, wow. We spent a ton of time in prep, actually, really. I mean, page for page, kind of line for line, we were digging into that script.
We did.
Yeah, and so we kind of, more than has happened in a lot of movies, we built a lot of that together.
Yeah, we really did. I think, I mean, we've all seen a lot of, I remember saying this to you right off the bat, like, we want to make the good version of the genre movie, and, I think that his work speaks for itself, but I think that was what we wanted something to be kind of honest and grounded, even though this is a sort of fantasy-based film. There was something we really didn't, we wanted the human aspect of it to feel very real and grounded in that way, and the relationships too. We talked about that a lot.
We generally, I think, and I think everybody in the cast would agree with this. We felt that if we removed all the supernatural elements, from the story, that it would still function as an exploration of, first, two parents kind of trying to reconcile the death of a child, which is such an impossible thing, and then kind of by the end, the movie's about a child reconciling the death of a parent. And that was the most important thing to us. The genre elements, while being kind of the delivery system for the story, we're always just meant to kind of enhance the ideas that are coming into that.
It's very uncommon to see a film of this sort. It's this melancholic and poetic. It's still a fantastic film to be produced on this scale. Would you try maybe to go into a bit of detail about what it was like getting this project off the ground?
Yes.
I figured that'd be met with a bit of trouble.
Well, they say a movie is sometimes proportional to its difficulty in getting together, and hopefully this one is. It was, because there's a natural pull when you're making a movie intended for a wide audience, which we always thought this was, to go for genre tropes. And, as you just heard, this was developed more as something that it works on a character level and it works on a dramatic level, and the genre elements feed that and give us a way into it. And so reconciling those two things when you're talking about financiers and distributors sometimes isn't that easy. Fortunately, in Micah Entertainment in particular, and ultimately in Relativity, we found financiers and distributors who really believed in what we were doing, and that won the day in the end.
Can you talk a bit about perhaps what it was like, how did you go about discovering Jacob Tremblay? Maybe that would be a fun story. And also, what was it like to direct him and to work with him, Kate?
I mean, he's Jacob Tremblay, my God. By the time we came across him, you know, we shot this before Room by about a year, right?
Yeah, about a year.
And so he sent a self-tape audition, just taped himself and sent it in. And his biggest credit prior to that was Smurfs 2. And we watched this, 3-minute tape that he put together, and we were stunned. He was so open and vulnerable, and everyone who looked at him for like a second and a half was like, I just feel this overwhelming desire to try to protect this little person because he just seems so fragile and awesome. And so it was really no contest. We had been looking at a version of the movie where we were talking about actors who were, I think, 10 to 12 to play 8, and Jacob was 6.
Oh, yeah, 6 and change.
And so he's playing older than he really was in this. One of the things you notice is his teeth as baby teeth. He starts the movie with his baby teeth and he ends without them. And,
or if you didn't notice that, it's because Jacob is an amazing sport, and we actually took him to a dentist, and because we ended up having to come back to shoot an additional scene, one of which you see in the movie, and for that scene, he actually had a tooth replaced. Temporarily, mind you, just for those of you who worry about child abuse. Or about the short in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great story. He's amazing, and we, and all of us, went to see Room, of course, when it came out, and we're floored by what he was doing in that film. And it's been so kind of amazing to start with, like, he was this tiny little unknown part of this movie, and now he's this huge part of this movie where it's Jacob Tremblay. It's really, like, we're so proud of him. And he knew everybody's lines, like, not even just his, he knew everybody's lines. And I mean, you could talk really well about working with him in that respect. Like,
Well, he's just, he is very much how you see him. I mean, he's, like you said, he's very open, and I don't know, it's kind of amazing I started doing this when I was 14 years old, and I felt like I was like just trying to like tie my shoes and seeing them shoelaces, trying to get by, and he's just like this amazing kind of prolific little person. And just doing scenes with him was one of the best experiences I've had. And it's kind of amazing to say that about someone so young, but I'm really excited to see where
he's going to rule the world.
Yeah. But I will say his parents are really wonderful too,
yes.
And I feel strongly that his discipline and his character and the way that he works is very much a sign of how he's raised, and just really wonderful parents. So he's a special one for sure.
Well, he's Canadian.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for him was just he was initially afraid of the Cankerman.
Oh yeah.
And because we had a contortionist in a suit. And we wanted to have, we didn't want it to be a purely digital creation. We wanted to have a practical Cankerman that we would enhance, but we wanted him on the set. And Jacob and Antonio, who played Little Sean, were really nervous about that. And I remember that we had Topher, who played the Cankerman, came in and in the full suit with the head and started playing with the kids, took off the mask, let the kids run around wearing the mask. And after that, they were fine. But like Jacob, that was the hardest part for him. Was I think a week before we started shooting, was he had to meet the Cankerman and he didn't want to do it. And then you couldn't get him off of him after that. Climb on top of the poor guy. But yeah, he's really something.
Beautiful. Let's ask some questions from the audience. Of course, we can only see the first row. Yes, go for it.
Bravo. I wanted to say that first of all on the story that you put forward, Mike. Really tremendous. You're a parent, correct, Mike?
Yes, I am. My son Ricky actually plays young Cody.
That's a figure.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I think the entire audience here, when Kate, when you first started to walk in and you saw, you relived the drowning. I think everyone took a big, frightening sigh with that scene. It really was impactful. As a parent, and to anyone else who is a parent or not, speak to the aspect of filming that particular scene as a parent and the filmmaker, and how personal it was to go through a sequence like that.
A lot of sequences in this were very raw for me, a lot of them. I mean, everything with the bathtub, kind of everything, even the sequences just with the grief support group hurt. And I do remember that we needed to get a shot. I mean, I had a really hard time shooting the stuff toward the very end with my actual son in the hospital and kind of going through all that stuff. But we had to get a shot for when his mother's telling him about cancer, and we cut to him right down the barrel with a tear, you know, and Rigby was 2.5 at the time. And he was having a blast. He just loved coming to Alabama and working on a movie. And I was like, how do I get this shot of my son looking into the camera and crying? And so I talked it over with his mom, and we kind of came up with a big plan for it where we would give him a new toy, and then we would just remove the toy and kind of put it in front of the camera. And it worked. He turned and he looked into the camera. And the tears started, and my heart just exploded. And I'm at the monitor like I'm the worst human being. And so we called cut, handed him the toy, and he lit up. He was great, and he was fine immediately, but I was a mess for like 2 years. And,
Actually, that's true. We still talk about that. And, no, you're a great parent. You're a great parent.
We had other scenes he was supposed to cry in, and I wouldn't do it. By the time we got that shot, I was like, we have the Rigby crying shot. I'm not gonna go there again. And now, actually, I'm having my second child is expected December 4th, and and it's like we've kind of talked immediately about like why I should never put him in my movies, how dangerous that could be for his development. But I think, you know, there were a lot of crew members too. I remember a production designer when he read the script. He has 3 little kids, and he said, you know, as a parent of these really special little children, the script really kind of grabbed onto him. And so I think there was in general with the people that did have kids, we just had a harder time watching some of the scarier stuff go down. But I think it was that kind of thing where people seemed to be on the same page whether they had kids or not. I don't think it really changed the experience for anybody. It was always just kind of a heavy.
It was very heavy.
Yeah.
Mike and I have developed, I think, 5 movies now, 3 of which you've seen or will see shortly. And most of them have child endangerment of some kind in them, which I think is just a function of doing what you fear the most. I have a 6-year-old who's Rigby's age.
All of them but Hush have a kid in serious danger.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Is there anyone up there?
Let's see.
Yeah.
I wanted to know that you cover in the story that Cody has a gift as a child, but I wanted to know your interpretation of why. How did he get this gift in the first place?
Regarding the why.
Yeah.
The why is a question, I tend to think that the big whys, especially in genre movies, tend to take something away from the story. I got this question a lot with Oculus, which was that we know that the mirror is evil and how the mirror is evil, but why it's evil. And there are people that I think really want those kind of answers. It's one of the most common complaints I'll read on message boards, which I've got to stop doing, and things like that. I tend to find that both with horror, with evil, in particular in horror movies, whatever answer that a filmmaker can come up with is never good enough. It satisfies some people, but it really lets down other people because I think the answers that we as viewers can come up with in our own heads are scarier. I also think that in the world, evil doesn't really have an answer. So there's always something that rings artificial to me when I try to explain something away that much. In this case, I always thought this movie was kind of the opposite of that philosophy for me because the whole movie was about the why. And not why he got the power or how he got the power, but why the Cankerman was. and what that meant. And it was like, this was my way of trying to answer a why. I think if I were to try to come up with a good reason that would satisfy everybody in this room as to why and how a child's dreams could manifest physically, I don't think I could do it. I think whatever I came up with, it would take pages, and that means minutes, to explain, and it would be patently ridiculous by the time I got to the end of it. And I think, you know, as much effort as the movie could have taken to be like, and because when he was born, you know, the hospital was struck by lightning and an MRI machine woke up, because previously in that MRI machine was a Wiccan. And the Wiccan had spoken these magical words over a toy butterfly that fell down on the ground, and the security guard picked it up and put it in the little boy's hand, and then lightning struck back, and everything else worked out. Like, there's no good story. And now I'm regretting that.
How did that sound?
Yeah, did that work? Was that good? But yeah, so I've just never been as interested in the why with any of my stuff as much as I am with the how.
And ambiguity has a certain power.
Oh yeah, we talked about this a lot with Fantasia, because there were a lot of people that were saying, why didn't you show the monster? And for one thing, we had $70,000, so whatever we showed, again, was what patent absurd. And the other thing that I found was that people, because we showed a spider and a silverfish, and we showed a shadow, and we showed something that showed how big it should be, people built their own monster. And I think that monster, for every individual person watching that movie, is going to be way better than anything I could have sketched out. So I think ambiguity creates tension in a way that I don't think explanation does. And explanation, if anything, relieves tension, which is not usually my goal of doing these. So sorry, that's a rambling answer.
So you had a question as well. Yeah.
Where did the butterfly imagery come from, apart from the metaphor with the chrysalis and the transition and grief? And was that from the beginning, from the start?
My son loves butterflies. And you know, one of the first images that came to mind when I was sitting with the script was we call them the lighter flies, which were the butterflies with the Christmas lights for heads, and I just couldn't shake that one. And then it was really frustrating, because we'd already written the movie, and I think we'd shot a good part of the movie before Mama came out. Mm-hmm. And we saw the ads for Mama, and we saw the moths, and I was like, no! Because this always happens when you make a movie, is you start to see elements, you know, popping up all over. And it was like we had this opportunity where it's like, well, do we just try to come up with something else? And it was like, no, for this story, it always felt like that was correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Were you inspired by Pan's Labyrinth to like mix the fairy tale with the horror part?
I love Pan's Labyrinth. Love Pan's Labyrinth. What I remember the first time I saw that film, I was shocked that I thought I was going to see a horror movie and I was crying at the end. And that doesn't happen very much, I think, within the genre. You know, I don't think horror fans are usually like, I really want to go cry. So, so yeah, I mean, I certainly, when I saw that film, I was like, I'd love to create a feeling like that, even like a fraction of how effective that movie is. So yeah, certainly I adore that movie. And you know, as I got to work with Doug Jones a couple of times now, who's just an incredible guy that I think I spent the first half of my time working with him just asking to hear every story I could about being a fawn and being a pale man and doing all that. In fact, we had a lot of moments where I was afraid, subconsciously or not, that we'd be pushing the Cankerman into pale man territory if we weren't careful. There's a minute where Doug was going to be the Cankerman.
Oh.
I know.
I was kind of wondering why we had him on this one.
It was a scheduling thing. It always is. But yeah, there was a minute, it was like, Doug Jones, the Cankerman, this is going to be amazing. But we had to try to approximate him in his absence.
All right, we have time for one last question. Yes.
I was wondering, as the filmmaker, the writer, and the acting, how important it was to treat, I've lost the boy's name in the movie.
Jacob?
To treat him not with like condescension, like treat him like the dialogue with more maturity. Like he asks mature questions and these answers with mature responses.
I mean, I don't think that's very difficult with Jacob, honestly. He understands on a level that is deeper than most adults, frankly. And so we would just, I feel like it was just like a honest way of speaking between all of us. Like I didn't feel the need to be, although I don't really do that with children anyway, really. I don't know, I feel like maybe it's I have a stepdaughter that I met when she wasn't that young, when she was about 12, and I just felt like I always wanted to talk to her as just a person in the world, and I guess I try to do that with kids in general. But Jacob is, I mean, he's a really, pretty prolific young person, and just never felt the need to kind of cater to him in that way, in any condescending way.
And we take a cue sometimes by the way his parents would talk to him. And,
Right.
and like from the very beginning, they always spoke to him in a very adult way. And so I mean, there was always just kind of this understanding that Jacob was just the shortest grown-up on the set.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there's an amazing outtake. I hope it can find its way onto the Blu-ray someday. But I knew it was set day 2, I think. It was a close-up of Jacob in the room talking to you guys when you first moved in. And he sits there and he says his line and he takes a little Jacob moment and he looks down and he shakes his head and he goes, line. And it took a second to be like, he's got jaded actor in him already. He's worked out the vocabulary and the posture of jaded actor. He's like, line, I'll get it next time. You're 6. But, yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you very much, guys.
Oh, God, thank you guys.
Hollywood friends.